Greetings all, my name's John McCormack. For those that don't know me, that's a shot of me rafting down the Tully River in Queensland a few years ago. I hope you've all had as good and interesting a year as I have, notwithstanding the conditions we're having to deal with. It's been quite a challenge, but been a lot of fun as well. So I'm the convener of the Overhead Lines panel, B2. And what I want to first talk about is our panel activities this year. We conducted our virtual meetings like most people did, and what we decided to do was run 4 times 3-hour panel meetings. That was quite a lot to bite off in one go, and quite a lot to organise, but I had quite a good response from my panel and a number of other guests who we invited to the panel meeting. The objective of inviting the guests was to encourage people to consider the benefits of Seagrey and perhaps take up membership. So out of our normal 25 to 30 that would attend our panel, we had another 30 or so guests from Australia and from a number of countries. So there's a couple of guests from New Zealand, in addition to our normal panel members from New Zealand, members from South Africa, and all power to those guys, because they were up at 5:30 in the morning to join our meeting, and then other people from Japan and Bangladesh. I've listed a few papers there, just to show you the range of topics. You can see that the condition assessment and failures of components as features, that's quite common topics. UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, are becoming a hot topic. A lot of people are starting to deploy those for inspection and maintenance of overhead lines. And then the last topic from Bangladesh, those guys were developing a new tower family. What was most interesting was that they then developed procedures to remotely witness the tower testing of the full-scale load testing of their towers as they weren't able to travel to the test station. And the particular interest for me is that we're in South Australia, we're about to do the same. We're designing new lines with new tower families, and we'll have to manage the tower testing remotely. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the broader community, what Study Committee B2 is up to. And you can see that there's quite a number of working groups. It's a pretty active study committee. There's numbers that are being disbanded or have been disbanded this year. There's 5 new working groups. But out of those 27 active working groups, there's 4 Australian conveners, and in fact one of those Australian conveners is managing 2 working groups. Admittedly, one is it's finished its work and about to be published, but so 5 of those working groups, 5 of the 27 working groups are managed by Australian conveners, which is an enormous participation rate. The Paris Convention this year was, as like everybody, was run using virtual meetings, and the papers were presented, questions and answer sessions, the tutorials, all through the virtual meeting format. There was 2 papers from the Australian B2 panel that were accepted. The first was the audible noise management of new conductors, based on some experience of Transparent New Zealand. And the second one was a paper that was presented to the Australian panel when we went to Hobart a couple of years ago by Mandy Fish, about the effect of power lines on wedge-tail eagles particularly. And we encouraged her to submit the paper for Paris this year, and that got accepted. However, that was actually presented under the C3 banner, not the B2 banner in the end. And then we've had a number of publications you can see listed at the bottom of the slide there. What I want to do is just quickly point out a couple of key things in the preferential subjects that have been will be people will be asked to present on in Paris in 2022. So the first bullet point under Preferential Subject 1, where there's this continuing focus on climate change and the effect that has on overhead lines, particularly more frequent storms, more severe intensity of those storms. And I'm not just talking about windstorms, but in Europe and North America, they've experienced some very, very severe ice storms, and then other places experience other sorts of natural events such as flooding. And then one of the topics that's becoming attracting a lot more interest is under Preferential Subject 2, the first bullet point, how people are managing emergency response. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, because that's a new working group that's being established in terms of references that are being written at the moment. And then the last preferential subject, a couple of years ago, we had a joint subject with C3, the environmental part of CGRE, and that's going to be repeated again in 2022. This next slide is just showing you some of the topics that some of the new working groups, some of the topics of these new working groups, and you can see there's when you look through them, there's quite a focus on the performance of overhead lines. This risk management is one that was initiated by the Australian panel. It's taken some years to get up. We finally got that going, and it follows on with a broader technical brochure that's produced and managed, produced under B2 and managed by an Australian convener, which talk more about the strategy of risk management. This particular topic, or this particular working group, will actually develop models to deal with managing risk on overhead lines for both distribution and transmission networks. You can see this working group 79 is going to be looking at overhead line rating. So that's a very topical subject on how we can get more out of our power lines to manage to manage future investment, and particularly with renewables coming in, where they have their peak loading can change during the course of the day, such as wind or solar, and how you can get the best out of our lines to service those types of customers. And then the last topic, again, reflecting on more intense storms and then how does that impact on our existing asset. So this working group will look at how do we actually retain our asset, how do we get a little bit more out of that asset. So that's going to be a focus for that working group. And then some of the terms of reference that B2 are considering. As I said before, the emergency restoration is one in particular, and that terms of reference will be, the final comments are being received now, and that'll be initiated. So there's a lot of issues about that topic, and it's not just how do you rebuild lines, it's the logistics of managing that under quite difficult conditions. In South Australia, in our storm in 2016, one of the big issues was fatigue management of not just the workers on site, but also the engineers supporting them. Another topic that's dear to my heart is the live work safe management, so I'm involved in that, and that'll be managed by the convener of another working group that's focused on live work, and that working group is about to complete their work, so that working group will continue with this particular topic. And the last item on the list is the safety management of overhead lines. So I've been working with a couple of other people in overseas from Brazil and South Africa and Europe on a construction methodology terms of reference for overhead lines. And as I started writing the terms of reference focused on safety, which was my interest, it occurred to me that this was a large enough topic to deal with itself. And of interest, this particular topic has got similar technical brochures that have already been published, one under the B3 substations, and another one that's being developed as we speak by B1 in underground cables. So this will tie in nicely with some of that other work. Well, thanks for your time, and hope you all have a good year and a good Christmas. Bye.